Podcast.
Hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome in person and online. I can't tell who's in person. That doesn't matter. I'm not there. That's my fault. Welcome to our Homeless Solutions Advisory Council for August. Great to see everybody. And we have a bunch of participants online, and it looks like the rest of the room is pretty filled. So great job, Solutions Council. We, of course, have a packed agenda because there's always wonderful information to share and learn about in this important work that we're doing. And so let's get started. Public comment is something that the county allows in meetings like this, any county meetings. And so the opportunity for public comment is made available. Meeting time is available. You can raise your hand, or if you're in person, we'll call on you in just a minute. For written comment, it can be made through our public comment form, which is attached to all of the materials. And so we're going to dive right into that. I believe we have someone in person today for public comment, and I would invite them to go ahead and speak.
Okay, where's the microphone?
It's right here. You can sit right there. We'll be able to hear you.
Okay, hi, I'm Kevin Beckman, 5-star general, COF 1991, magna cum laude, PhD physics, plus other good degrees, including construction management, all transferred to Oregon State University, which is really College of Forestry. Okay. The university is really a guest on the state lands, which are not state lands, they're a guest on College of Forestry. So anyways, ownership, I'm here to talk about ownership of Heartwood Commons first. It's clear, there's a survey done about 15 years ago, maybe more, maybe less, that the Washington County owns the land Heartwood Commons is on. Okay, I'm really upset about this mismanagement of Heartwood Commons. I've lived in 204. There's been 7 fires in 18 months that I can count pretty much. You can check with the fire department on that. Heartwood Commons, fire safety is really in question. The ownership, the management of the whole thing is really rude, and it's not public safety. It isn't for the shelter of women and girls. It isn't the shelter of good Oregonians or Mountain Hood people that are disabled. There's a lot of hostility in there in management and security guards. There's been a lot of needless demolition of the interior. And the status of it being a hotel or apartment is not in question, because there's electronic locks and key cards available to security, management, and other people. It is a hotel. That means safety locks for room occupants are required. Okay, they've threatened me significantly when I talked about tampering with safety locks. They said you cannot put one on, and they threatened me with eviction in there for doing it. Okay, and that to that point about the safety locks. So I want it to look like Washington County owns this building now. That's my comment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comment online or in person, or that came through online?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No other public comment in the Zoom or through our forum.
Thank you, Martin. Then we will move on to our updates. We'll start with our staff updates and reports, and then move right into our committee updates. We do have slides that will help us take us through which committee we're asking about. So we'll start with staff.
Good afternoon, everyone. Jess Larson, for the record, and here to provide updates for our team. The couple of items that we wanted to present today are, is that the next slide?
Yeah.
There we are. So sometime in July, I'm sorry, I don't recall the date. Well, let's first take a look at those lovely photos on the left. Who is that?
What happened, people?
I think Kim might be seeing those photos for the first time.
Yeah, this slide is called "Let's Take Away the Camera" from Emily Roots.
Yeah. All right, so on less lighthearted news. There was indeed an executive order last month on specifically the work of addressing primarily unsheltered homelessness. That was not the framing of the executive order. And there was a lot of hateful language towards the people we serve in this executive order. It was very challenging to read for those of you who've read it. And it's probably very challenging to read for those of us in the system doing the work across the country. It calls to question much of the principles by which we lead our work on ending homelessness, and calls for the criminalization of poor people, people with mental health conditions, and people suffering with addictions who don't have housing. So a lot of very disappointing language from our federal administration that doesn't help us solve the problem we are all organized together here today to solve, and it doesn't help us I guess kind of keep the faith in the work, if you will. But on the other hand, it itself is not self-executing, is some helpful language that was passed along to us. It's a lot of language to describe a position and a perspective, but it is not a lot of specificity of what actual implementation would mean or look like for any of our jurisdictions. So we continue on under the directives, the best practices, the programmatic guidance we have, the leadership and the clear direction we do have that guides our work forward on ending homelessness here in Washington County. I think the main objective here is to reassure you that we are all paying attention, tracking what this could mean and how it's likely to play out, and also thinking strategically about how to navigate and what our partners need in being able to navigate. Last week, we heard from a couple partners that there's real concern around data collection, privacy data collection of the people we serve, and that, sorry, let me say that more clearly, that the administration might ask for data, personally identifying data that would put people we serve in harm's way. And so we are working on sharing out some very clear guidance around what data can and can't, because we cannot, even if the federal government asks, share personally identifying information with the federal government from anyone isn't in our HMIS system. But it's helpful to have that guidance and to be able to share that guidance so our partners feel reinforced in the work that we're doing. And so we're continuing to take action in those kinds of ways. And I want to invite you all in as part of our leadership providing guidance in our homeless for help where you see help needed as we navigate orders like this, and give us good advice about how to keep showing up and persisting through these headwinds. I think that's all I want to say on that one. Though we have time for questions also probably at some point in the agenda today. Nicole, I'm sorry, I forget what the FY26.
Yeah, do you want me to take that
Jump
one?
in. Mhm.
Yeah, so this one is in regards to, we brought you updates on the president's budget when it was released, which we got a lot of housing and homeless services programs into one state block grant program. I want to confirm that Congress is not considering that approach. The fiscal year 26 budget that was presented on the House committee did include the same programs as they are now instead of a block grant at much lower rates than they're currently funded. I'm pleased to share that the Senate version of that budget includes what is just moderate reductions. I don't want to downplay that they would be reductions, but for the most part, it holds programs at the funding level they're at. For this current fiscal year, I do want to clarify, we are expecting another CR, continuing resolution, that actually moves forward rather than an actual full fiscal year budget. But we'll keep you posted as we learn more. Congress is on recess right now and is expected to reconvene in September to continue budget deliberations.
Thank you. Holding steady on the federal front, and you'll hear more about that in a second later in our agenda around the continuum of care funding specifically. But on to regional funding, the Supportive Housing Services Program. Congratulations to you all and the team who have submitted our updated and final work plan for this programmatic year. We go through a process of submitting a draft work plan in the spring based on the forecasted revenues, and then finalizing that work plan based on final conclusions of the year, current updated needs, and the actual financial more updated financial information in the board's approved budget. So the team completed that, and now that is online and will be our framework that guides our objectives for this programmatic year. Continuing on with a focus on helping people experiencing homelessness to get into housing, preventing people from falling into homelessness again, and a variety of systems improvements to make our work more efficient and help people move through the system more effectively. So you can learn more at that link. And then last, a reminder, the staff team is working feverishly to prepare for our annual forum. If it's not on your calendars, this might be an opportunity to schedule ahead. The date is
October 30th.
That's right, October 30th, the day before Thanksgiving. It's a bit, the day before Halloween. It's a bit earlier than usual this year. And it's building on the great fun and success from last year. It's really a dynamic, engaging audience and conversation. So if you haven't had a chance to attend, I really encourage you to attend. And there's an opportunity to submit to, no, we are in the process. I'm gonna just
Pass it.
Nicole.
Were you gonna submit CARES award? Was I shutting you down?
You were shutting down I was gonna submit a CARES award.
All right, well, I'll take over. Sorry for that.
It's okay.
We have coordinated our talking points clearly. But we have a new thing we're launching this year, which is the Community Cares Award. We talked, if you were at the summer social, we bent your ear on it a little bit. We want to continue to bend your ear. Oh, do we have any nominations? Are we still at 0?
We have a few.
Okay, we have a few now.
They're
We've dire
trickling in.
before.
Yeah.
But we're starting to get a few in. So if you have someone that you know of in the community that does incredible work as a volunteer, or as an employee, as a client that has done just incredible work and helps their community, we're really interested in recognizing the collective work. This is something we do. We do CARES awards for our staff. We'd love to do them for the community as well. So this is our first go. We're just taking advisory body nominations at this time as we test it out. But a program we'd love to expand in the future and continue to recognize, you know, it's county staff that are absolutely part of it. It's our providers that are absolutely part of it. And the broader community is been a big part of how we're making the progress we are in Washington County, and let's beat the drum of all the progress we have yet to continue to do.
I just want to clarify that advisory body members get to nominate right now. That's not advisory body members are the only nominees.
Yes.
So there, just keep that in mind. It can be anyone in the community that you think is deserving, and they don't have to represent every single value. But just whatever stands out to you about them, just share that with us. And that's it. It shouldn't be a lot of stress. I know sometimes people like read these things and they're like, oh, I have to like really write a whole essay. It's okay. It's just like, yeah.
And if someone's not selected, will they still get the nomination?
They'll be notified. Yeah, we do plan on notifying all the nominees.
That's a practice we have internally too, and it's a
Yeah.
lovely way to
Yeah.
just recognize someone.
Yeah.
So we encourage you to participate if you have someone in mind. Thank you for
I've got one
clarifying.
coming. I am currently in the perfectionist stage of my singing. I appreciate you saying that.
So many people in mind that I can know. You can submit more than one. Okay, so. You can submit more than one. I have 117 staff.
Fantastic. I put Nadia through the ringer on that one because I too, Drew, was trying to be a perfectionist and find a way to every value. And Nadia's like, Kim, stop. This is not this hard. But thank you. If you can nominate, please get those in. So staff, we can have this a successful first CARES award, launching this and giving people the recognition that they really deserve, which is fantastic. We are going to move on to our committee updates. So we can go to the next slide. Perfect. Thank you. We'll start with our Solutions Council subcommittees.
So we have the procurement subcommittee that we're gonna be voting on. Today. So sorry, it sounded like someone got hurt. It's hard. Okay, so we'll be voting on that later today. There was a memo in the materials. Hopefully you all read it. The other update will be that in September, we'll be doing some lived experience subcommittee meetings. We'll actually have 2 this September. There's gonna be one that we're doing with Home Base on coordinated entry. And then the other one's gonna be in collaboration with the resident advisory body. And it's gonna focus on the local implementation plan. And if you know anyone that you think would be a good fit for the lived experience committee, we're always open for new members. I also have an update from Deanna about HAC, if I should quickly share that now. Let me pull it up. I have to read it off my phone. Okay, so this, we talked about CARE and the housing forum. So some of the HAC's updates this month are to design and build updates that are coming out on a few affordable housing projects like Heartwoods, Grinnell, and Woodspring. Section of 18 update, which is the disposition of 60 public housing units. Due to longstanding funding challenges, maintaining single-family housing has become increasingly complex and expensive compared to multifamily housing. The proceeds from the sales of the 60 single-family homes will be to renovate existing affordable housing properties and build new affordable housing developments. We have been successful in having a few of our public housing residents purchase their home. And our staff will be presenting on the emergency housing voucher plan, which are expected to be sunsetted in 2026.
Thank you, Nadia. TCPB, I think we'll look to you, Zoe.
There was no meeting this month, so we'll skip August and September will be more updates for the end.
Great. Thank you. The SHS Oversight Committee, Jim.
Well, we did meet on the 28th, and the committee still exists for an indeterminate period of time. Very briefly, revenue expectations are presented, and there's no huge surprises as far as SHS revenue is concerned. And the majority of it has had to do with the Tri-County Planning Board, and we approved the technical assistance and the recruitment and retention. And I would just say that the real work that goes on in those committees comes from the Tri-County Planning Board. So those were all approved, and really excellent and very thorough work.
Nice, yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jim. Nadia just did HAC, and then McKinney-Vento is my view. I don't see.
I'm here.
Yay, perfect. Thank you.
Hello. So most of the liaisons across Washington County are just starting to get back into work. I just got back last week. And so by, I'm guessing next week on Friday, most of the liaisons or all of the liaisons will be back. One of my coworkers did work over the summer, and so at least Hillsborough School District, where I work, right now we're already at 49 individual students that have been qualified for McKinney-Vento services. So that's any student that has been identified as experiencing housing instability. But that number always, it's going to grow. And so good news is that over the summer also, the current presidential administration finally released federal funding. And so at least for this 25-26 school year, our McKinney-Vento programs are in okay state. Everything's going to be year by year, it feels like, but at least for right now, for this moment, we're doing okay, which is good news.
Wonderful. Welcome back.
Gracias.
Any other updates from committees? Okay, fantastic. Then I'm gonna pass it over to staff for our next couple agenda items, the HUD COC, and then procurement subcommittee. So please take it away.
This me again, okay. We foreshadowed this earlier in our federal updates. So one item of change that we are anticipating to be a likelihood at this point, it's still not a certainty, but there is a likelihood that the federal government, the new federal administration will require us to submit a COC NOFO. This is something we used to do every year, so that's no big surprise. What is the surprise is that this was last year was the first year the administration had moved to a 2-year cycle, significantly alleviating an enormous amount of workload on COCs across the country so that we could do that work only every other year. So we are in the beginning of the second year, if you will, of what we thought would be a 2-year grant process. Unfortunately, it's looking likely that the current administration might change that direction. And so we need to prepare for the likelihood of NOFO dropping at any moment. The challenge is we usually start preparing for this in the spring. So we're late, they're very late. And if it drops, it's probably gonna have to move pretty quickly. So that is why we're here to ask for your help, because we're gonna have a pretty tight timeline if in fact this moves forward. And it is your role as our Solutions Council acting as our COC board to establish a procurement subcommittee to support this COC application process. There are several components to the COC application, one of which is rating and ranking the grants that are submitted to be, the programs that are submitted to be considered as a part of our application. And so we need to prepare a potential committee to act in that role in support of the application process if it comes to that. So that's background. Do you want me to keep going? The staff has done most of this work. Okay, so I want to acknowledge that the staff has put a lot of thought into getting ready for this likelihood. It's important to know that committee members can't have any conflicts of interest. So we have a different bench we draw from than the entire Solutions Council, where we have to look to partners who aren't likely to have any direct or indirect interests in any one of the applicants that are going to apply for a potential COC board. So these are our recommendations from your committee here, including Adam from the Health Share Board and Jim. Neither of which are likely to apply for COC grants themselves, so not having any conflicts of interest. And Stacy, who also serves here on our board and works at AARP. And then not of the COC membership, we are recommending Lauren, who works in community development, a sister department to the housing department here. And Lizzie, who works with Metro, and then Megan, who works at the city of Tigard. So some jurisdictional partners. And this body would help staff advise us on the development of our rating and ranking tool, the ways in which we measure the applications that come in, and then also participate in evaluation of those applications that come in. So that is the recommended slate of members. All of these individuals have been requested to consider this role and have, to my knowledge, accepted that request. So that's why their names are being shared here publicly. So it's hopefully not a surprise to any one of you. And we're asking for the board, your Solution Council / COC board's action on this recommendation to appoint this subcommittee and this specific membership. Kim, did I get in the way? I'm sorry, you have a hand up.
I have a couple questions. No, I'd rather you finish first. What is the normal timeline for the due date of a COC application?
I believe, and Jesse, I invite you, having had some experience in this, I believe it's usually like a 6 week, 6 to 12 week turnaround.
July is usually when it drops and then due sometime in September.
So there you are. We've
So
heard it could be as short as 2 weeks,
Yeah.
but we doubt that that's even feasible for the administration. So we are hoping that that's not the case. But as Jesse said, it's usually due sometime in September, and September is tomorrow. So we don't know how much time we'll have to actually prepare the application.
great. Love the slate of membership. But follow-up question would be, how in the past have we ranked and rated those proposals for the COC application?
Was that?
Yeah, so Kim, I'm happy to answer that question. In your bylaws has the Equitable Procurement Subcommittee. You notice the name has been changed in compliance with the direction we're receiving from the federal government to the Procurement Subcommittee. So last year, the Procurement Subcommittee met twice to consider the rating and rankings and provided feedback, I believe via email. Jim, I think you were part of that process.
Correct. We have the rating tool here that,
Yeah, from the technical subcommittee.
Yeah, so-
Thank you.
That's, and previously to the Solutions Council existing, it was a role of the COC board. I believe the COC board also had the practice of creating a subcommittee without recipients of COC funds to do the rating and ranking proposal. So it's usually their staff put together a rating and ranking proposal, receive feedback, make changes, and then use that in the application itself.
What am I remembering then? Because it was this the application that used to go to Hisson for a vote, or was that something different?
It was. Easier.
I believe you're remembering like doing the actual rating and ranking at Hisson.
Yes.
So
Yes.
this would be the committee that creates the rating and ranking system that then used to have gone to Hisson to be used.
So it would still go to Hisson?
No, I don't believe so. But sorry, we're talking about the creating the committee that creates the rating and ranking. I am actually uncertain of where it goes to be
That
ranked.
It comes back here.
Come back here.
Yes.
Okay.
What's this Hisson?
yes.
All right, Kim.
It stands for the Housing and Supportive Services Network.
Okay.
So then sorry, you guys, there's a little bit of a delay. So would Hisson still have a vote, or that's been taken out of the equation? I'm just checking in.
The final vote on the application comes to you all as the COC board.
Mhm.
Okay. Those
So
are my
then-
questions.
Would those of us who have applications that are a part of that application would not vote on that conversation, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
So what you would be, you would probably be voting to approve the recommendations of the subcommittee, and those of you with conflicts would have to abstain.
Got it.
Okay, any further discussion?
The youth, the FISBE NOFO that came out, we usually had 60 days to complete that. Thankfully, we didn't have to submit an application this year because it was our off year, but they gave, their window was 14 days this year.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
And they did provide a small extension, but it was essentially 14 days.
Drew, what is that acronym?
Family and Youth Services Bureau. So that's the federal entity that funds our basic center, our emergency shelter. And they also fund transitional living programs, maternity group homes, street outreach programs, which they took away street outreach this year, so they did not fund any street outreach
So they
programs.
made some significant changes.
Yeah.
wow.
That's interesting to figure out.
Yeah.
Okay, Drew, I am going to pass it over to you. You have the voting script with it, so please take over.
So we are looking for a motion to approve the establishment of the procurement subcommittee to support a potential of the continuum of care, notice of funding opportunity before us. A memo dated August 21st, 2025 was provided in the meeting materials with further detail about the subcommittee that we just heard from Jess as well, and recommended membership. I will accept a motion to move forward to a vote.
I'll motion.
Okay, and second, We have Christina and Zoe. So the motion has been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Okay, so we will now vote on that motion to approve the the consent agenda item. Indicating the approval of the establishment of the procurement subcommittee. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Yeah, I think I.
Yeah.
Uh,
No conflict.
No conflict of interest.
Just an eye.
got it. All opposed, say nay. I'm assuming those were leftover hands raised, okay. The motion is passed.
Thank you, Drew. Thank you, everyone. We will keep you posted as we learn more. We appreciate you helping us prepare for this
And
possibility.
thanks to the members.
And thank you
Yeah.
to those of you who
Volunteered
said
and
yes to this responsibility.
Wonderful. Thank you, Drew. Thank you, everybody. We will move on to the bulk of our agenda today, and we are just so close to right on time. So I'm going to pass it back to staff. Jesse is with us today, which is very exciting. We love when you join us, Jesse. Thank you for coming. And Jesse and Nicole, it is on you.
Great, well, thank you so much. I don't think I've said my name for the record, so I'm just gonna say it. Nicole Sting with Washington County, glad to be here to talk about the local implementation plan. To provide some background before we dive into the revamp process, the local implementation plan is a requirement of the SHS measure rather. Every county created their own local implementation plan and have been using that to guide our how and why of the homeless services system that was built by the Supportive Housing Services Measure. The plan itself, as it says here, it describes how SHS is prioritized and delivered, really on the why of why it's prioritized and delivered, and it was developed with comprehensive community engagement. So it went to the COC board. There was a homeless plan action committee that was established. If you've read the 188-page document.
187.
Oh, I'm sorry, 187. That's a huge difference there. If you read that document, you see a long list of 70+ people that provided input, was engaged with the county at that time. 40 different organizations and local governments were represented in that list. And it led to what became our local implementation plan, again, that 188-page document. So we'll go ahead to the next slide just to give you a bit of a sense of where we are in this project. We started it internally a few months ago. Nadia, next, please. We started it internally a few months ago, just getting feedback from the experts in our staff. What should we update? Where is the greatest change? We've been doing that work with each of the teams, as well as doing a racial equity analysis of what we're planning to update. This will be part of our process throughout. And this month, we're really starting more external engagement. So we're talking to you all as a first step. We've had some conversations with other funders and with national leaders to understand where systems are headed and how to navigate some of the changes as we think about what's needed for health and housing integration and the change with the federal government. So we've had some high level conversations right now. We'll bring forward a few questions to you this month, and then you'll hear from us a couple times. We plan to come back with different sets of questions throughout our process. And then starting in September next month, just 2 weeks away, we'll be doing some more community engagement, going to that HISA group, the Housing and Supportive Services Network, which is made up of providers, a lot of caseworkers go, other folks that work in related systems, the human services system. There's a lot of representation from the folks there as well. So we'll be going there, asking them questions, engaging there. And then we'll have other series of engagement we'll talk more about, and then working on drafting that from August and February. And working to kind of address what needs to be updated. It's likely we'll take an amendment process rather than a full overhaul. But on the next slide, chat more about that engagement. So as I mentioned, we've been having conversations and wanted to think to work with you all to understand, are there people we're missing from this list? So we're planning on going to you all a couple times. We're going to our lived experience advisory body combined with the resident advisory board, as Nadia mentioned at our staff updates. And we'll be engaging with the Board of County Commission
Can everybody hear? We froze you guys.
How much did you miss?
You were going to the Board of County Commissioners.
Great, all right, I'll keep going. We're also talking if that happens again, just let us know. We're also talking to the executive director roundtable, our city liaisons. We've been having conversations with our county partners and with Metro about this update. As I mentioned, other funders, and then broadly for the community, this is where we're really interested to see, are we missing some community groups that we should be talking to? We mentioned Hisson, Abel, we'd love to go to the McKinney-Vento group, as well as we've been talking with Kim and Drew, your executive committee, about doing a public hearing for the Solutions Council to hear generally from the public. We'll probably also include some type of online survey for folks that just want to engage remotely. And then we're considering maybe focus groups, talking with provider groups. Wanted to see, is there any key folks that are missing from that list? We have, we're planning a few months of engagement. We want to be thoughtful about talking to folks, maybe unlikely people we wouldn't think to talk to. So we'll pause here and see, are there folks we should be engaging with when it comes to what our homeless services system needs that are not in our current plan?
I feel like we can, maybe it's under providers, but we can name them, frontline staff. Or outreach, or community resource advocates, housing navigators, liaisons, shelter staff. But naming them, because then if you don't name it, they will feel excluded, and they're the most important voice in this work. Why not?
Veteran services.
Veteran services, yes. Yeah, appreciate that. We'll be talking to the federal VA sometime soon. But also if you're aware of any veteran groups, we should go to also our county veterans offices. Diana.
Hi everyone, Diana. I also want to mention probably the DVSA survivors or folks from our partner organizations as well would be an important voice.
Thank you, Diana. I might connect with you offline to see, are there kind of specific tables we should think about going to, but I can reach out after.
I wonder if there's any way we could maybe have the lived experience advisory committee support like some targeted listening sessions with like certain groups of individuals, I know you're gonna do community stuff, but like those that are actually receiving these services, so like, with some of the youth and, those hearings and those listening sessions aren't the most approachable, I think, for some folks, and so if there's a way to maybe engage some of the population that would feel more comfortable being in a setting with maybe some of the providers that they're working with or case managers they're working with. So I wonder if the lived experience subcommittee could help drive that a little bit.
Love that, Drew. We just did a couple listening sessions with our clients at the Access Center, and it was incredibly informative. So agree with you. The other one I would add is probably police. Particularly our CIT team here in Hillsborough, the bike team in Beaverton, and I know Tigard also has some engagement. They're engaged. Well, Kim, there you go. There's fire and ambulance and stuff are engaged in interesting ways, and I think they would absolutely have a voice. So law enforcement and all first responders.
Can I throw on the flip side of that, the corrections? So
Great. Yeah.
I would actually go straight to the people who are coming out of corrections facilities and find out what their experience has been like.
Not seeing anyone else jumping in or coming off mute. I'll ask the who are we missing question remains. If you think of someone tomorrow, next week, feel free to reach out to, please.
Yeah, I would just add, in addition to like the McKinney-Vento liaisons, maybe just the school districts in general. And that would be just reaching out to their individual communications departments.
more thoughts along the way, just let us know. We'll certainly come back and would love to know if there's more folks we should be talking to. But on the next slide, we'll just want to share kind of how we're planning on closing out our engagement. This is what we're considering phase one. This engagement is what we'll be using to draft any updates, addendums, amendments to the local implementation plan. What that looks like and what those addendums look like is a little unclear, so we do want to go back to community, close the loop, ensure we reflected what we heard from them accurately, and then also just make sure we have buy-in from the key partners, our service delivery partners that are doing the work. We want to make sure they're bought in, agree with where we're headed as a system. And I'll add one more note before turning it over to Jesse to walk through what we're planning so far on the update. We are the first county to go through a local implementation plan update. We don't really know what this process will look like in the long run. Metro is a partner to us, thinking through how do we navigate this. It's kind of considered in the IGA, but not fully reflected. So I will let you know if there's changes. That might be that whatever we bring forward has to go through a series of improvements. Jim, we will be going to the SHS Oversight Committee, I believe in October, to talk about this. So we'll let you know how this project plan evolves as we're going through it, and we're happy to be the test case for the region.
I know that.
Oh. Yeah, thanks, Stacey. I'll just say it out loud for the record. We would love to do a listening session with ARP. So we'll all connect with you offline.
All right, so I'm gonna take us through what an LIP revamp could look like. As Nicole mentioned, this is a process that none of the other counties have done before. We really aren't entirely sure what it should look like right before we do all of this community engagement. So we're gonna ask really big questions today, questions that are not easy to answer, questions that are a lot of conversation. We mentioned, that we're going to be doing a lot of community engagement. We'll see lots of you in those other spaces. You will see us again next month and the month after. So we'll be around. So please don't feel like pressure to get everything that you need to say today. There are, again, things that are probably going to stick in your head, hopefully, and that make you think and have other stuff to come back to these next couple of months. They are big questions. So with that being said, the LAP does have certain things that are required. And in that 187-page document, right, we hit all of these last time. And some of them are a little more out of date than others. So the ones we want to focus on today are the yellow ones. So we're going to talk through the sections that would discuss the changes we've had since 2020 and how we're analyzing inequitable outcomes, how our access coordination system works, how we evaluate our outcomes and reporting. And then funding investments obviously look very different than 2020. Our system is very, very different with all of this amazing. And then as Nicole mentioned, yes, we will definitely be going to the SHS Oversight Committee and the Metro Council, but we aren't exactly sure what that will look like. So next slide, please. All right, so our system is built. There's a couple final elements underway. We've got some access centers coming, some transitional housing still coming, but the plans are all there, and those final elements are should all be online by 2027. So the system is built, and so instead of looking towards growth, we are really pivoting towards system balance and maintenance. Now that we have all of this amazing programming and foundation of buildings to have this programming be in, now what, basically? So the current LIP has specific goals in it. So it mentions very specific numbers, like 250 shelter units. And we can all pat ourselves in the back and give shout outs to all y'all in the room who did these things, because we now have over 430 shelter units throughout the county. We don't just have 1,665 supportive housing slots, we have over 1,900 supportive housing slots. And we have built a network of culturally specific providers. We're up to 7. And we have a culturally specific cohort that one of my coworkers, Trinard, supports every month. We have started a racial equity lens tool process that all of our new policies and procedures go through that lens. And then we also have created a standard of care. We have program manuals, policies, and procedures, all of which did not exist 5 years ago. So high five to really everybody. But again, now that that is built, how do we make sure that it is maintained and balanced appropriately, right? Like a lot of times programming and policy gets created and then kind of ignored, and all of a sudden 20 years later you look around and you're like, oh, this isn't great anymore. It's not really working for the community. So How do we not let that happen? This is a little bit of a pivot real quick and blast from the past, so I'm sure all of you remember November 2024 vividly. But just in case you don't, you had a conversation about the system balance. And that was, this is not current anymore, obviously, that was current as of 11/24. It was what our system looked like, and you all talked about, again, kind of system balance and focused in a little bit on group 3. So any questions about that? Just giving you a little reminder
I
Oh,
of that
wasn't here in
conversation.
November of 2024, so when I saw the slide, I have no idea what group 1 to 3 went.
Okay.
I
full
think
with it, so
it's
she
some
can
of the
do that.
gaps here. This stemmed from, we were unexpectedly realizing that the SHS revenue would be far lower than what was initially forecasted. So we understood that we needed to pivot our system and make programmatic reductions. And to support how we think about programmatic reductions, we had a conversation at Solutions Council about the proportionality of our system that allows for system flow through. So not having folks be stuck in one part of the system, but allowing people to move through into ultimate permanent housing, whatever that looks like for them. So in that conversation, we as staff worked on we had 3 different groups come up with what proportionality would look like. You can see they're very different, and they all are very different from our system. And when we had the conversations at Solutions Council, we talked about the need to increase transitional housing for folks with high acuity or recovery needs, and shrinking rapid rehousing to make room for that growth in transitional housing and kind of right sizing our system that way. So that's what you see reflected in group 3 and the conversation. But I would invite other Solutions Council members, just want to provide that brief summary, but please add in, I'm sure I missed details that are important to you in the conversation.
I thought that was a great recap. Yeah, good job. Yeah.
I also think it reflected some of the realities of state funding that was gonna realistically not be available for rapid rehousing. If I remember that correctly?
Yeah.
Right.
I remember a comment you made, Zoe, about like, we were looking at all the different pie charts as if they were themselves individual models, and there was a moment at the meeting you described, like, I think it's we're in movement from the left towards the right, like how our system starts to add in more transitional housing over time, essentially.
Okay. All right. Well, we need to return there and just let us know when we can. So one of the is we have built this system and we do have finite resources. We are in a much improved place, right? As we were in 2020, from $5 million to around $100 million is a huge difference, but still that $100 million is a finite resource, right? We can't do everything with that money. So what do we do with it? How do we balance the system? We are bringing, per that conversation last year, that some of that is happening. Rapid rehousing was one of the programs that was reduced this year. We are bringing on a lot more transitional housing, very, very exciting. We are starting the construction of those projects this year. So it's gonna take a little bit, but by 2027, we'll have about 120 units of transitional housing online. So that future pie chart is starting to look a little bit more like a reflection of our permanent resources. Oh, and then I do want to point out that second bullet point there, support services are not reflected in this pie, but obviously are needed. This is a little bit more of our kind of the foundation, the structure of SHS. So yeah, I'm gonna just kind of like leave that there and really want to have a wide-ranging conversation. I'm going to be taking notes while you're talking, so apologies if I'm not looking at you, but I am going to be taking copious notes. But yeah, how do we balance the system, keeping in mind that we have right, some things coming online still. Yeah, but I really, what do you all think? I want to pick all of your very, very knowledgeable brains.
And I'll maybe add just one more consideration while you're pondering. We wanted to bring back that slide from November and affirm that the feedback you gave then is also influencing us now. So certainly welcome to repeat some of the conversations from that meeting. We have new members online and in the room that weren't there for that, but want to again affirm that we see this as kind of building on the work we've done with you all. And if you've had changes in thoughts or additional recommendations or additional context, Edward, we're glad to have that conversation.
I have some guilt.
Yes.
I think in our discussion, I think that what we talked about in the addition of transitional housing was really important. We all agreed on this and it's really the right thing to do. What I worry about is the reduction in the rapid rehousing. And I always wish that we had better data on who's coming into the system. Talking about the change from 2020, who's in our system. If I look at the blue and the dark blue, I see population A. So everybody familiar with population A, B, okay? And we have a contractual obligation of some reason and, but I just worry about people coming into the system and are we gonna not be able, is that gonna be a huge need that we're not gonna be able to meet? By what we've done. So there's my second thoughts about how we've done this.
That's totally fair, Jim. I'll add maybe just a bit more nuance in that we expect that the blue colors on that pie chart are most likely population A, but what we see come in, we don't know what will be for transitional housing, but for permanent supportive housing, it is not 100% population A that lands in permanent supportive housing. So we do have some additional balance that we need to consider to get to 75. So just a quarter of the pie chart being Pop B programs is not quite us meeting the contractual commitments.
It's not that simple.
Kim?
Hey guys, I'm gonna piggyback off of Jim a little bit, because that's not the first time he's asked that question. I'm not counting, but multiple times he's really asked for that information of who's coming into our system and then how are they exiting. Similarly, we've asked when we've been given these broad stroke questions is, I don't know how we balance the system because I can't tell you exactly how the system is working for us. I don't know how permanent supportive housing is working or rapid rehousing. I know from my perspective within our agency, but as a system, are these programs working well for folks? Our public comment today might say something about PSH, right? So I guess for me, I need a little more information about how are they doing currently? We shifted from feedback to really move towards transitional housing because the group as a whole really felt like that was a good next step, and we're on that trajectory, which is fantastic. How is rapid rehousing going? Is this a successful program? PSH, how is it going? Shelter beds, where are we at with where those are going to lie, or probably bringing the pods into the conversation? Where is that conversation leading? And I need more information before I can tell you how do we balance the system.
Stacey, I'm gonna jump in here really quick because what you guys are bringing up right now is exactly what would be helpful for me to hear, right? I'm not asking for you all to say like, we need 40% transitional housing and 20% shelter and like all of that stuff. What I would love for you is exactly the questions that you're asking, right? Like, how would we figure out how much transitional housing do we need? How much shelter do we need? So who's coming into the system and how are they exiting? Great, beautiful. Like asking questions like that for me to be able to funnel into like a systems analysis process, right? That we can then do annually to say, is this working or not? Is perfect. That's exactly what I need. So please don't feel the pressure to be like, oh my gosh, cut this program and add this program.
Yes.
But what would you think in your heads if I asked you to do that? What would you want to know? What would you want to look at? So exactly what you all are saying, give me that list.
So data.
Yeah.
Basic.
Within that too, is like, I'm thinking about how is rapid rehousing and transitional housing working for the transition aged youth population versus the older adult population, right? So yes, as a system, how are those programs working? But then even deeper, like for each population, how is it actually working? Stacy.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I was just gonna go back. I'm glad to hear this little addition to the conversation right now, because yes, context, data, the questions that I would ask, actually one just came up because of the discussion. So what do you mean PSH isn't mostly population A, B? I can't remember which one it is. Sorry, I'm further away than I used to be. So, I need some explainers there of like, oh, has something happened? Have we evolved in a different way than what we were expecting? Because I thought it was targeted toward one of the populations. So yes, context.
Yeah, and I'll maybe jump in. We in Washington County have in the beginning of our programs did not use population A and B as definers for who's eligible in our programs. I know that's changed a little bit for rapid rehousing, but we try to prioritize those that are population A, but that's not the only category we're looking at, where we use coordinated entry prioritization to refer. So while permits for housing is primarily population A, it is not solely population A. And Jess, I'm forgetting the exact nuance. Is it because I'm forgetting the detail in our, I think it's for folks, we prioritize folks over age 55, which is I think the reason why we get more population.
I might say it just a little differently.
Please
They're eligible, so
Mhm.
seniors over 55 may
Mhm.
also be eligible for population, for but that does not necessarily translate to prioritization, and also it's a very minor number of people who are in PSH programming. So, but I think your fundamental point here, getting back to your question, Stacy, is that when we think about the population A-B split, which Jim was bringing up, I think Nicole was trying to describe that not each program is designed specifically as a population A or a population B program. We have both in our shelters, we have both in transitional housing. So that could be a source of some data that we gather. It's like who is being served in these various programs and how does that add up to our commitments around the population A, B distribution. Is that helpful, Stacy?
Yes, I was trying to find the thumbs up, but I couldn't find it. So yes.
Thank you.
I want to add in kind of a sub question that's not listed here and something that we've talked a little bit about here, but I know all of us are thinking about as our system reaches capacity. Is there anything about diversionary programs that we should consider? And for those of you not from the homeless services space, diversionary, you might think the court system, that's not what we mean in this case. In the homeless services system, diversionary programming is really how do we get someone into housing without using our resources? So is there a family member they could move in with? Is there, if they get a flight back to their hometown, can they then live with a family member and be stable and be safe? So are there anything along that line that comes forth for you all?
Yeah. And we tried to do that.
Almost like prevention work.
It's a diversion conversation, yeah, and partnership, like there's nothing if you don't have partners where you can also provide other resources that we don't have, or maybe. So I feel like it's with the not infinity, but finity resources, we need to tap up between all of us because it's not gonna be enough. And then with that said, how we can provide that support, that stability support that our community, low income communities, so they don't end up homeless, with utility assistance, discounts on your bills that we also support our community with, food banks, anything so they can pay their rent and they don't have to utilize their income to fully pay rent. So those conversations needs to happen with our people that are reaching our services. And then to go into the systems. And then diversion when they are homeless, it's crucial.
I remember when we were working on these pie charts, thank you for all of that. I couldn't agree more that the role of the other kinds of assistance and how we prioritize that resource as part of our pie chart is really important. And I don't think we were thinking about slots, beds, units, if you will, when we worked on this pie chart last time, and maybe that's an opportunity in our LIP revamp is to flesh out our system a little bit more comprehensively to include those supportive services that you listed, Jesse, and these other kinds of resources that maybe don't provide an ongoing spot in the capacity of our system, but still are critical to helping people move through it quickly. That was more of a comment than from me, and I'm not supposed to be commenting, Jim.
Oh, all right.
Uncommon.
Well, maybe you're right. So I just want to summarize the discussion from the SHS group maybe a month or two ago, where data was coming in and there was let's say, the SHS Oversight Committee is a little bit nitpicky, okay? Not me. But anyway, there's a report from Multnomah County that said, well, we have 10 people exiting the system and we have 15 people coming in. And then this was nitpicked for blah, 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 blah. And it comes out 14 people coming into the system for 10 people leaving. Who are those 4 people? And they said, well, we should give a report at every year to find out what happened. And my point, I'm sorry to do the same thing. It's too late to wait for a year to say, maybe we need a readjustment to see who's coming into the into the system and how we might want to change. But I don't know if it's the same for Washington County, but for Multnomah County, that's an impressive number. There's an impressive number of people going out and there's a more impressive number of people coming in.
Do we want to linger here? We do have 2 more slides and about 25 more minutes, but I don't want to rush. I mean, like Nicole, I mentioned earlier, we'll be back next month and the month after, so we have plenty of time to talk these things through, but we can move on if you all are feeling ready. They're all big questions.
Yeah, this is a big one.
Yeah. All right, well, a systems analysis process, like the questions we're gonna ask, the process that we'll go through each year is part of the conversation that we're having around the LIP, so please keep those processing as to like, yeah, how do we figure that out? All right, so this next one, how do we balance a housing first approach that is supported by collaborative accountability through programming and policy? So one of the big things that we're doing in this next couple of years is adding that transitional housing to the system. We heard that need loud and clear from participants, from providers, from everybody we talked to, that this is a gap. And I always like to flag here, because I've been in this work long enough now to see transitional housing go in and out of style, essentially. So back in the day, transitional housing was really kind of something that we required, right, of folks to do before we were allowing them to access housing. And it was kind of this, like rule that we put in front of allowing folks to access permanent housing. I want to be really clear that we are not doing that this time. Transitional housing is an option for folks who need that, and it's going to be helpful for them on their journey to stability. It is never going to be something that we say you have to do this to access permanent housing. So really want to make that clear. But as part of that conversation, right, like really balancing that housing first approach is really making sure that those assessments are done, right? And that the approach for whatever household is presenting is the one that we take, right? Like what does this person, this household need? And so that they are successful, right? We're not putting folks in positions where they are not going to have good outcomes for their health, for their eviction record, for their financial health, like all of those things should be considered. So I think I might need some context from maybe Nicole or Jess in the rehousing discussion, since I wasn't here for that. So do you wanna?
Yeah, this is a discussion that's coming to you next month. We'll be talking about the rehousing work. This was part of the just now I'm forgetting. I think maybe we have had this conversation. My brain is a little fuzzy on it, but the rehousing discussion is how many times should we pay for someone in an ARTLA voucher to move? So what is stability look there? So that's a conversation we'll be having with you all, and that's part of the system of helping to ensure we're being efficient with resources, setting other folks up for success, and then also being considerate of our system and the folks that are waiting in line.
Yeah, so that accountability with public funds, that accountability for folks' safety, right? Like what does that look like with that housing first approach? So again, don't need like concrete stuff from you all, but what should we consider when we're making programming and policy around that? What kind of questions should we be asking ourselves to make that function?
On a call Katie came and we did start a rehousing conversation, but it got kiboshed by this exact topic. what do we, what do we consider as housing first? Because we're actually not doing housing first. I mean, what you just said, Jesse, making sure we're putting people into housing and not increasing their eviction and not, and so I'm gonna go back to the context question is what does Washington County consider housing first approach? Because I know that we're using it to get people into housing, but without those wraparound services, which really housing first speaks into, is when we're seeing people not be successful in housing, which then would lean into the need for transitional housing.
And Kim, I'll maybe turn that question back to the Solutions Council, because I don't think that's a fair question for just staff to answer. I think we as a system, as a community need to answer that question together. And I'll also name, this is like the sticky question in the housing world right now. This is what we're all wrestling with.
Yeah, I'd love to
You
answer.
do your house first with rapid housing, that's rapid housing. And you ended up knowing while you're doing case management that that wasn't the right intervention for this family. And then I need to move them into a more support housing approach. Where
Yeah.
so then you wait until they come up into a list or to a voucher. And by that time, the 2-year program ends. That's the reality.
Can I ask maybe, what I'm hearing your comment to be, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is our current approach of housing first is get you in housing and we'll figure it out. And maybe we need to pause, ask what does the appropriate housing look like? And which doesn't, that is not the model of housing first that rolled out initially.
But at that, with that, the family or individual might stay in shelter longer or outside of the street longer because the right and appropriate approach is not available just yet. Because it takes time to access the voucher and come up and have this for subsidized housing. So
I'm hearing a balance of, Jesse described it as it's not a housing first with and accountability last, like there's a balance of accountability, but I'm also hearing a description of like, how do we do housing first and not set people up for failure?
Yeah, because we had discussed about how a lot of times we'll get someone into a house, but then those wraparound services that this person might need, they aren't readily available. Which is, yeah, too risky for them not being successful.
And I think too, then that makes me think about weighing the impact of, the trauma related to not being housed versus the trauma related to being disrupted once you are housed because you weren't placed in a system that was set up for you to succeed in.
discouraged.
I think the VA has an excellent model with the VA, and there's a lot in the paper now, but the VA is housing first. But it's housing first with getting into the system, and to get housing first, then you have to be in the system. You have to have some degree of support, even if you're going to a not dry house, you still have some degree of support. So it's not like it's one or the other, it's this with a little accountability.
And then the other.
Yes, and I'm gonna interrupt a little bit because you all are brilliant and are going to the next slide already, and I'm just gonna toss that up there really quick to make it kind of one big discussion. So you're mentioning the VA example, which of course incorporates housing or medical support and housing voucher a lot of time, right? You get in with maybe the temporary assistance of the SSVF program and you end up with a VASH voucher, right? With all of the support services in between. It is an excellent model. But here. Intense.
Yes. Intense, the case management is intense.
Very intense. Agreed. So here, I mean, we're dancing around the topic that we are seeing much higher acuity needs, right? And we aren't equipped to solve them. We can put someone in housing and we can't give them the behavioral and medical support, right? Through our own services that they need. So I'm just gonna toss this up there and have this be kind of one conversation because again, you all, of course, 1:30. So as we're having this other conversation too, how are we going to leverage other funding streams? And I know that Medicaid is a whole big sticky issue right now too. For the purposes of this conversation, let's pretend we can access it. Cause I do think we're going to be able to, right? We are going to have to spend time training staff and all of that to make sure people stay enrolled and get enrolled and all of that stuff, but I think people will still be able to do that. This also came up earlier already, right? Support for folks exiting institutions or incarceration, hospitals, prison, whatever. But anyways, I just wanted to throw this slide up really quick because we are dancing around it anyway. So continue the whole conversation.
And Adam, I don't know, I think your hand was up before we went to the slide, but this is kind of a slide built for your expertise.
No, it got up there right when I saw this slide because I have so many ideas. Well, first of all, I think that the work that we're doing with Jess and Leslie about doing a data sharing agreement is going to go a long way to proving, like, to demonstrating acuity, and we can demonstrate acuity based on which housing type people are in. It's something that we're already doing now for Multnomah County, and it's pretty powerful data. And so we're going to be able to demonstrate levels of acuity based upon which which housing intervention they're enrolled in. And that then creates real opportunity for creating connection to services that meet those needs based upon which housing intervention you're a part of. And I think what we can start to do is really work with the, like, as the CCO rep, like, we can really work at creating intentional touch points between care coordination and navigation to services for folks that we know where the acuity lies. And I think that this is something we're working on regionally, and it's not outside of the scope to say we're going to be doing it in Washington County, because it is the work that we're doing. And I don't know exactly like what you are, how exactly this plan needs to look, but it's something that, like, I would be happy to continue to, like, I guess, develop what coordination and training of housing services providers, and like making service like trainings available to meet higher acuity needs. Like, we can start to do some of that work of connection to training that could meet some of these needs along the way. And I don't know exactly what we're doing here. I came on late, and so I apologize for, like, just probably throwing out ideas that don't make any sense or aren't even related to what we're talking about. But these are the things that I'm thinking of when I see connection to Medicaid, leveraging funding streams, and connections to behavioral health. We've all got to do this together, and we're already starting to do that work, and we can do it a lot better as we continue to work with Jess and Leslie on some of that data piece.
I so appreciate that, shout out, and we're all excited to bring more on that to you soon. And I guess I think I like that we're framing both of these questions together, because I see this as a place where the homeless service system struggle with our commitment to first get the person housed and then figure it out or get them connected. And what we're finding is, there's less and less resource out there for acute behavioral health and addiction needs that we might, as a system, have to grapple with. How do you hold that principle of housing first when you might not be able to safely provide someone housing? And then does that mean not house them? Does that mean not serve them? Especially when the partner system, keeping you on the spot here a little bit, Adam, is not themselves able to offer an immediate solution. And I think there are a couple different ways we could struggle with the tension of housing first as a principle. And this is an important one for us to continue to grapple with, because I think there's a lot we can do with systems alignment. And also, we are a housing system, and some folks might not be ready for independent living in our system.
And I would push back on that a little bit, Jess, for the reason that the service that, like people need of like ongoing community-based care that's going to continue to go to a site, that may not be readily available, but there is a walk-in crisis clinic in Washington County. There is a mobile response team that does mobile responds to behavioral health crises in the moment in that space. And there is availability at the behavioral health clinics that are the major clinics in Washington County. Is that meeting the need? Not always, but that is available, and it just isn't being it's not, for whatever reason, people aren't accessing the things that are available, and they're talking about the things that aren't. And that's really hard for a system when, in order to access higher levels of care, you have to start at the bottom and then work your way up. It's not a great system, but it just as you'd go to a primary care doc to see somebody about something, then they would refer you to a specialist. That's how the medical system works. And a lot of people want to skip to a higher level without trying the initial steps first. And that's like, it's kind of understanding how that system works that allows people to move through it. And so I would push back a little bit that it's not available. The thing that people want in that moment might not be available in that moment, but the services that people are saying are not accessible are accessible. You just have to get them there.
That's really good and helpful. I appreciate you being here and pushing back. Thank you. I think we're worried about where that person's gonna sleep forever. And your point is, let's first get them in some healthcare and then figure out what they need and what their housing plan might be. And I appreciate that pushback. I'll stop turning this into a Jess and Adams show.
We like the show.
And I'm going to shamelessly self-promote as well. I'm going to put a link in the chat for anybody who's available. Like, I am hosting a Medicaid 101, how to navigate the healthcare system for homeless services providers in the 2 different sessions in the first or second week in September. The idea is, if people know how to navigate the system or how to even get the first step in the door, that'll help our whole system start to be able to work together better. It's not a perfect training, but I am going to put the link in the chat for those who might want to share it with their staff, or especially with the people who are directly working with individuals. I think it could be really helpful information. I've designed it to be simple and approachable, but with good information. So of how to do these first steps to get somebody what they need.
I would love to include my staff on that. Thank you so much for putting that together. And did you do the entry access and all the steps with somebody to prove that the system is effective and work? As that type of as training, but you did it so you know it works.
I've been a behavioral health provider my entire career until I started from HealthShare, all in community behavioral health. If I didn't believe that it would work, then I wouldn't have kept doing it. And I don't think that it's not a perfect system, but it can work if people are willing to, if people take the steps to make it work, it can work.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I really want my staff and to be able to learn how to navigate the system.
Same. So Adam, you now have a bunch of us that are going to be reaching out to you because we're hitting those roadblocks, right? And I would love to make sure, like Zoe, my staff understand it better first and foremost, and then try to figure out some of those next steps. Because what we're hitting is the system requires someone to show up, particularly like an outpatient, to show up at a certain day at a certain time. And most of the clientele we work with, that's not viable or reasonable for their mental state, let's say. And so we're just struggling how to, like you said, those first steps into the system so that they can ultimately get to that outpatient place, because that's what they need. They need that more intensive. So we are going to take you up on your offer to teach us and help us and show us the way. And so thank you.
Well, I'm curious when you
there is some way, and we haven't.
And I'm just curious, have you accessed the walk-in clinic? And has that been effective to bridge people to a space of being able to get to an outpatient provider?
So we actually have staff in Hawthorne and now at the CAT. And so absolutely, we have that built relationship and have tried to utilize it. I think for us, what we see is most of the clientele, to your point, it's not 100%, right? But most of our clientele, they need that inpatient. They can't do the outpatient. You know, it's similar to what we see when someone comes out of or when they get a ticket and have a court date. They don't show up for court. So now they have a warrant for their arrest. Because meeting those guidelines, meeting that you have a date and a time and a place you need to be, they don't seem to be able to do that. And we don't have the resources to handhold in that way. We don't have the funding to staff appropriately for that type of intervention. And so whatever information you have and ability to help us do better, we want it. Because this is exactly the crust of our frustrations is making sure folks are getting set up into those systems to ultimately get the appropriate care.
I'm gonna jump in really quick because we have a couple of minutes or 7 minutes left, and I think there was a comment in the room. Yes.
Sure, fine. I have a couple of comments, but one, if you're thinking about possibly leveraging other funding streams like Medicaid and possibly one way to save the county money, tapping into partners, community partners who can assist with doing things like walking someone through Medicaid in a supportive environment and how to process OHP paperwork, SNAP benefits, et cetera. But to really use those of us who don't have a county contract for SHS services like that might be interesting, because it's not gonna cost anybody anything, whatever that means. But anyway, second, yeah, I will say that places like Hawthorne Walk-In Clinic and the CAT program and other mental health emergency services are wonderful to say that we have. Walking through those doors with people and having them not receive the services that were promised or the direction or possibly us putting them in a situation where the situation failed, right? We're setting them up for failure. That's part of the reason why they don't want to access services now, because they've been treated like less than, if that makes sense. And so a lot of education and work, I think, should go into really educating those of us who are in the systems currently to be able to say, no, this can work. No, this will work, because we have a lot of new things set up, right? The CAT program that's going to the transitional housing, that's going to the recovery center, then the transitional housing, fantastic. Hoping that those will actually produce the results. And are they going to produce the results? And I think sometimes we give a lot of lip service to the fact that we have these things, but unless you've walked through those doors with individuals and walked that road with them, you know that those are not perfect. So evaluation of services that are currently existing, I mean, the public comment, but also all the services that are existing, I think is really important. So I'm much more, but I'm just kidding. That's good.
I'm hearing you all circle around the fact that like the case management kind of needs to shift a little bit, right? Like we have done this like really big push towards like housing searches, and now we need housing retention. And that is things like educating ourselves about, okay, I'm gonna go with you to Hawthorne and this is what's going to happen when we get there. So you're not setting up for that, expectation. So to me, that's kind of what I'm hearing from y'all, right? Like that the system is in this new growth stage. And so like maybe how we do those supportive services, we're not like looking at this caseload of 20 folks where 18 are unhoused, right? They're probably housed, maybe 2 aren't, right? So like, what are we doing for those 18 folks to make sure that the housing is working is kind of what I'm hearing from you all, right? Like leveraging our partners in Medicaid to learn how to sign up the folks that are housed for OHP so we can take them to Hawthorne, so we can get them enrolled in services. Am I capturing that?
Yeah.
Correctly, okay.
Yeah, I think, Jesse, the other thought would be housing demotivates I know that sounds weird, right? So once we get someone into housing, they're not as motivated to then go figure out those other steps. Hey, let's go to Hawthorne. Let's get this mental health thing, taken care of. Or, hey, do you want to talk about detox and addiction services and stuff? They're housed. And so for some of our clients, they're like, why? So I think it's more complex, obviously. It's hard. But this is why we get to have these discussions.
And it's okay for someone to make the choice to not take up on housing immediately if the services aren't there.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna throw it out there that I think that there's a reality that there's some of our population that housing may not be the best option for them at the time. And I know it's not the popular thing to say, but like,
It is true.
we all want to put a roof over someone's head and give them presents and puppies and all wonderful things, right? Sometimes it's not the best option for them. So it's gotta be human specific, person specific.
To what is housing first.
We have to continue to offer services to those folks, even if they're not going in the direction that we want.
100%. 100%.
And that was something Jess said to me the other day, right? Like housing first isn't housing only, right? Like it's something that we offer, right? So if you want to go to housing first, let's talk about it. If not, like here are the other things that we can.
What about the idea of like homing first instead of housing first?
You're gonna change your bridge. You're gonna.
I'm gonna learn.
Hey,
That's
that's now.
This is a good time to change that word, right?
Right? That's home is, I mean, it's wherever their home is and that's
Yes.
what we're providing them services and that's not gonna stop and they're, anyway.
I
Sorry,
think I think the other piece of it then is looking at our contracts and what our requirements are, because we're set to timelines. How fast did you get someone into housing? And if you don't meet it, then your scorecard comes up in the red. So it's a full system conversation, right? From contractual to how then it's implemented and plays out in reality.
Well, I see Adam's hand. I think we'll take the final comment from Adam, good privilege, and then we'll just talk about next steps and wrap up. We're almost at time.
And I'll just end it with, I don't want people to like walk away with me saying like the system is perfect, because that's absolutely not what I'm walking away saying. Like it is not a perfect system. And I am not a magician. I can't magically get people to the like all of the things that you're wanting. But like as with any, like people have negative experiences whatever system they can go. It works for some people, it doesn't work for other people. And then they walk away with a bad experience in this one thing, and then it paints the picture of how that looks. I think what my goal is, and why the reason I'm in this council and working with all of you, is to try to better the experience of people who are experiencing homelessness in Washington County and getting them the care that they need. And I appreciate this conversation and like the fact that I feel like this was a good discussion that was not people necessarily seeing eye to eye, but like being able to have that discussion of how do we do it better. That's the point, and that's what we're doing. And I guess I just want to leave you all with that. Like I'm happy to be a voice to support this work and keep moving it forward and keep figuring out what we can do better together and make our system even better. So just thanks for having this discussion at all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adam.
That, and sorry, Kim, sorry, really quickly, Adam, thank you. And thank you for pushing back today. And thank you for helping us have hard conversations. That's the goal. That's our job. And I want you all to know that I sit at the Behavioral Health Council meeting once a month, where they ask questions about how broken and how unhelpful the housing system is. So this is good and this is real, and keep it up, all of us.
Quickly to close it out, we'll take the next steps on the next slide, just to share out, we'll be coming back to you. We bumped a conversation to make space for this. We want to make sure, you might notice that we're trying to shorten what's on the agenda to leave more room for discussion. So we have September here, it might be October, depending when we have other conversations that need to come up to support implementation timelines. But we'll be coming back next to talk about how we should be thinking about using the LIP. Currently, it's a nice document that sits on the shelf. We'd love for it to be something that guides us all in the park. And then we'll continue conversations. We in future meetings. I do want to again shout out to Drew and Kim, who have been talking with us about a public hearing. So it's likely that we'll shift one of your fall meetings into the evening to make space for a public hearing that will allow for more members of the public who might be working 9 to 5 or have other commitments during our normal hours to come in. So more to come on that. If you do have any concerns, let Nadia or I know. Any scheduling concerns, we want to make sure you can participate, but a lot more to come. This was a great teaser conversation. As always, reach out if you have any thoughts after the meeting.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, everyone online, everyone in person. Thank you for being here and your dedication to this conversation and the important work that we're doing. Thank you, staff, as always, for your hard work. And that will adjourn the meeting. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you. I think I'm joining.